Can you all hear me? Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. I'm nervous. I'm more nervous than I normally am, and I think it's because we purposely generated hype for this, which I didn't really consider was going to be a terrifying thing to then have to stand up and deliver on. Yeah, so for those that don't know me, my name's Dan Kidby. I'm co-founder of Animal Rising and have worked kind of in the development and strategy design of like these beautiful campaigns that you see before you that has, like I'm proud to say, had the participation of hundreds, if not thousands of people within this movement and this country. So thank you for everyone who's ever been a part of this journey over the last 5 years. So I always like to start my talks really grounding us emotionally in the context in which we find ourselves, which has been mentioned, I think, from time to time over this weekend. But of course, we are entering into a period of profound transformation. And this isn't necessarily going to be positive transformation. We're living through a climate emergency, which is expected to result in major food shortages. It's going to lead to billions of refugees, and that is going to place such tremendous stress upon our societies and our civilizations that there's a extreme likelihood that we might not make it through this. And this is meant to be coming within our lifetimes, within the next few decades when this is really meant to be ramping up. And I think for us as a movement, it's really important to ground ourselves in this situation. It's like, what's it going to look like in 20 years' time if we can't get food from the supermarket? If I think at the moment we've got, latest news is like we've lost 40% of our wheat crop and our potato crop's been, basically destroyed. What's that going to look like when you get multi-bread basket failure, which they're predicting is going to be a 50% chance by 2040 that we're going to be facing multi-bread basket failure, which means that when the major food-producing regions of the world simultaneously have crop failure, you're going to look at millions of people starving and dying. You're going to look at mass migration to the extent like way beyond billions of people on the move. And with that comes rising authoritarianism, comes fascism. And when I say fascism, that's a word that's often bandied around a lot, but I'm talking fascism in a very real sense in terms of heightened government control, I foresee a time personally where people on progressive, in our progressive movements who are engaged in really trying to make positive change in the world, really do face dire consequences even for speaking up, even for trying to do small things that liberties that we really take for granted today are going to be seriously threatened. So Animal Rising really seeks to ground ourselves in this really changing realities that we face. And we seek to strategize off the basis that how is it that we should respond to these emergencies? We know we've already passed 1.5 degrees of warming, so that's already gone. And so how is it that we respond? How is it that we tell the truth about the urgent systemic change that's needed to happen, and we really push for that? How is it that we prepare for the times when society really wakes up to how bad this really is and starts desperately seeking for solutions? Is a plant-based food system going to be something that's on the table that whoever it is that winds up being in power can pick up and implement? And that's really what we're trying to work towards. Like I think it was in Matthew's talk, he spoke about the iceberg. Not the iceberg, he called it an iceberg at one point, accidentally. The ice cube. It's like, it's frozen, and then suddenly it melts away. Layla mentioned this in her talk as well, like change is very non-linear. Sometimes, you're tumbling along and then all of a sudden massive change happens in 6 months. And are we as movements prepared for when these things happen, that a plant-based food system is something that can be rapidly implemented? And that's going to be as part of a broader progressive shift, because really that's our two options. It's the dark authoritarian fascist future, or it's a real progressive alternative that challenges the economic paradigms that we're in today and is alternative visions of the future. So yeah, animal rising for the last 5 years, our goal has been really to put at the forefront of the public conversation this urgent necessity to transition to a plant-based food system and to rewild the freed up land. We have three strategic strands in which we're doing this. So firstly is creating a national conversation. So these are the things that we're probably most known for. It's the big, large-scale direct actions, which are highly press-grabbing, grab the public attention, and bring forth public conversations about the need to really transform how we live. So in 2019, this started as we really embedded ourselves within the environmental movement by organizing a massive rebellion alongside Extinction Rebellion. And whilst there are thousands of people on the streets, whilst you had Extinction Rebellion as at the time what was recognized as being the #1 global influencer on climate issues, we were there alongside them, occupying Smithfield Meat Market, occupying Billingsgate Fish Market, and pushing that plant-based food system message into the conversation. So that anyone looking, it doesn't matter how much they're paying attention, it's like, oh, environmentalists care about the meat and dairy industry. It's like it was present. We continued on pushing that over the years, blockaded McDonald's, which got us to the top of the BBC news story for, I think it was like a day and a half or something, like massive story. That again brought plant-based food systems into the conversation. In 2022, we realized that actually, for what we'd done and also others within this movement had done, the plant-based food system, it was part of the conversation. Animal WAG was really starting to be recognized. It was no longer this taboo subject within the environmental conversation. So we said, okay, how can we develop this narrative? How can we extend it? And for us, it's not just like, I kind of say in 2019, we were like, hey, plant-based food system matters too. Animal farming matters too. In 2022, when we disrupted the dairy industry, our goal was to say it's not just that it matters, it's that this is the key fundamental solution to our problems. And the reason why, as we all know and all very familiar with, is that when we transition to a plant-based food system, we free up tremendous amounts of land that we can rewild. We can restore the forests, we can restore the wetlands, the peatlands, our oceans can recover finally from just not being just bottomed out by super trawlers and that massive destruction of life. And what that allows is for the mass carbon drawdown. And of course, the restoration of wildlife to address the mass extinction crisis as well. So it really is the silver bullet solution. And it's something which is essential to do alongside fossil fuels. So we really brought that message forward. And so we kind of came into our own and said, like, this is the key solution. Times changed in that the environmental movement, I'd say it kind of reached its peak and has been starting to peter off a bit, as I guess my assessment. Repression has really increased within that space. But I think for us, a key thing was that it was a very saturated conversation. We felt like that less the message was getting through. It's like people had heard so much about the climate crisis, so we felt like it wasn't landing as well anymore. So we identified that we needed to pivot. And always on the narrative trajectory of what we were trying to get to, it was, we need a plant-based food system. The environmental movement makes that an acceptable idea. But really, fundamentally, at a deep philosophical level, we have a broken relationship with animals. It's at that broken relationship which is at the core of so many of our societal ills. Like, if we didn't treat animals, whether domesticated or in the wild, with such absolute indifference and contempt, we wouldn't be in the crisis that we see ourselves now. So bringing this deeper conversation is really important for us, and we really recognize, especially as these major tumultuous times are going to be coming in the future, that's a time when societies really have to look at themselves and reflect. Just like if you in your ordinary day-to-day life go through something which completely sweeps the rug from under you, that's a time when you look at yourself and you say, who am I? So it's an opportunity over the few years to really get deep to this philosophical question. So that led us into disrupting the Grand National at Aintree last year, which was, I think, our just biggest, it was our most successful attempt at really creating this national conversation. I think we're a top story for 2 days, front page of the newspaper, 10 front pages and all this kind of stuff. And we really, in every interview that we were having, we really brought it back to this broken relationship with animals. And we also rescued some beagle puppies from MBR Acres as well, which really, I believe, galvanized the movement and got us to feel hope again as we see animals coming out. And it's the vision of freedom. This is the vision of animal freedom. It's animals being taken to go live a life of love and care in families. So that's what we've been doing on the national conversation front. I promise I will be announcing what we're doing as well. Then we're also working institutional transition. And this isn't for us like a material thing. It isn't like, can we, swap as many plates as possible. It's about a symbolic representation of council institutions, university institutions saying we need to be going 100% plant-based. It's very, plant-based treaty are following a very similar strategy here. It's getting that institutional adoption from legitimate voices. Like recently in the Plant-Based Councils campaign, we passed a motion at Worcester, and then the local mayor was on the media saying, yes, we need to make this transition. I don't think he was a vegan, but he recognized the situation that we were in. And so he's then a voice out there saying this is the change that we need. And it suddenly starts making our cause so much more legitimate because it's not just coming from those, like smelly hippies in the corner. So yeah, we've got the university campaign. This has really grown massively because we've been doing a lot of deep grassroots community organizing, setting up groups. So we've got 80 odd groups across the UK and Europe. And we've passed 11 motions for 100% plant-based catering at the students' union level, which is really the student voice saying this is what we want, this is the future that we want. Most people voting for those motions are not vegan. It's really important to recognize. People are far more willing to make this radical change if they feel they're doing so as part of a group. And this is another thing which is really central to AR strategy. We're not trying a one-to-one individual diet change. We're trying to create the conditions for everyone to shift together. And I'd say through our campaigns is we're really building up an evidence base through what's happening in the council chambers, what's happening particularly in the universities, that people are very, very willing to go along with this collective shift. But asking people to go vegan feels isolating and alienating. It's like, I don't know any other vegans. How am I going to go vegan? And Matthew in his talk spoke about recidivism. It's like, you go vegan, but you don't know anyone else, and you're awkward at dinner parties, and then you go back again. So it's a collective action problem, really, is how I view this solution, is how do we do this together? And that's really what we're working towards. So the institutional transition is about, building up that legitimacy across society. In future, we intend to be launching a plant-based schools campaign. That's not what I'm announcing today. We intend to be going into hospitals and other places as well, probably over the years as well. But you can see there's loads of institutions we can be bringing this into. And we also hope other people, we're already seeing other people flocking into the space and doing this work as well, so it's brilliant. Third aspect of animal rising strategy is our work with what we call key stakeholders. Who are the real key stakeholders that we need on side in order to create this plant-based transition? So first we did that with the climate movement. It was a very strategic alliance for us to go into solidarity with the climate movement. When starting AR, I was very firmly in the animal rights space. And I moved into climate, one, because I care, but two, because I saw that there was an opportunity to win that part of society over to our message. And they've come a long way, but there's still ways to go. We're starting to do the same experimenting with the nature, like conservation, rewilding spaces as well. But we're also recognizing that farmers are really key to this transition. They're the people who are going to be growing our food. We can't just view them as enemies that we need to be fighting against. They're the people they're the key stakeholder in this issue. We can't just demand we have this plant-based food system and then have nobody that's willing to grow the food for us. They have to be coming along. And what we really want to avoid is a situation where, 5, 10 years down the line, the government passes a policy for plant-based food transition, and then you have a massive farmer rebellion, just like you did in the Netherlands, which I don't know if anyone was following what happened over there, but it's just like we really want to avoid that outcome. So we're working closely with the farming community to try and build relationships early on, build trust so we can bring them with us in this transition. And there's probably, over the years, other stakeholders that we will seek to invest time and energy on as well, but there's only so many things you can set up at once. So bringing back to the national conversation stuff, which at Aintree, at the Grand National, what we saw, because we created this massive conversation which kind of centered around the banning of horse racing. We tried to bring in the animal farming stuff, and we did it somewhat successfully, but conversations became about horse racing. But what we saw is after that massive pressure and that massive bold call for the ending of this industry, very, very, very quickly, the industry responded by implementing the biggest welfare reforms in a decade to the race. And this was a response to the pressure that they were feeling. In my view, that was a pure PR measure. It was not done for the safety of the horses. It was done to save face. It was done to protect that industry. It was done to sustain that industry. And you can see that because how they're marketing it. This year, all of their press, all of their marketing is welfare, 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 welfare. Safety, 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 safety. And that's how they protect themselves. And there were studies done by those and was published by the horse racing industry that said, this is how we maintain our industry, is we adopt welfare measures. This is how we placate some of the criticism that we're getting. So we realized that to effectively bring this broken relationship with animals narrative really effectively into the public conversation is really important to bust this welfare myth, to bust the idea that we can use animals and do it nicely. So that's our focus for this year. So how do we do that? So we're deciding we're going to go for the most symbolic representation of this idea that we can use animals and treat them nicely. And we believe we do this by going for the RSPCA Assured scheme. So as we all know, the RSPCA are the oldest, the largest, the most respected animal charity in the country. I wouldn't, are they respected by us? Depends who you ask in the room. But they've done really, really fantastic work. But they've got this massive, massive, massive blind spot of what they're doing to these to farmed animals and how they're rubber stamping systemic, widespread cruelty. So for those who don't know what the RSPCA Assured scheme is, I'm sure we're all quite familiar with it, but just in case you don't know, the RSPCA have adopted a set of standards that they say, this is a way to farm animals in a high welfare setting, and they get farms to sign up to that scheme, and then if they sign up, they put their RSPCA Assured logo. So the consumer sees that logo and goes, oh, this must be nice, this must be well cared for. Their marketing for this is happy cows on a nice open field. We know, because we've already heard it here today, Animal Justice Project have been doing, particularly very recently, some amazing exposés of the absolute obscene horror of these facilities. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting what's going on in these places. Not only do their welfare standards allow for factory farming, allow for just like suffering on just an absolute mass scale, but these standards are not met, routinely not met. So they don't even meet what they themselves say they should do. The legal standards are not met. So we've been going to many of these farms, we've been looking around, we've been looking at the historical exposés that organizations like Viva, like PETA. I never know how to, I've been in this movement for like 10 years and I don't know, how do you say it? PETA, PETA. Could anyone resolve this? I'm going to go with PETA today. Sorry, I'm sorry if that's wrong. Do you work there? Peter. Oh, okay, all right. There, we all know now. And now I've forgotten the list of all the other organizations that have done the great work exposing RSPCA, sure, but there's lots of us in this movement have been doing this for years. And we do it, and it really, you know, we're doing it because we all collectively know, we all see that this is the key symbolic thing that the public put their trust in, that makes them think that it's okay to be treating animals this way. I want to clarify at this point, I'm not standing here, I don't want to be criticizing other organizations that are doing work around welfare in this movement. I don't think it's helpful for us to get into this, like, to reignite these old conflicts, but like the RSPCA short scheme particularly is just like, it just absolutely has to go. And it's because of the marketing, it's because of the public trust in it, it's because the RSPCA are putting their name to this absolute atrocity that's going on. So, with these previous exposés that have been done, we've kind of looked back at what's been happening, and we've seen they tend to follow a cycle by now. Like the RSPCA Shore team, their PR team are very used to getting these exposés happening. And what happens is they say, okay, we're going to drop that farm. Don't worry, that's just one bad apple. The scheme's fine. You don't need to worry about a consumer. Attention moves away, the press moves away. And then usually, sometimes a few days later, sometimes a month later, the farm's put back on the scheme. And then we do another exposé. And then they say, don't worry, it's just one bad apple. You know, this cycle has been going on. And over time, this has been really good at chipping away at this stuff. But really, we're falling into this trap, I think, of just like, we do it, they do it, and it's kind of, yeah, that cycle is established. And what we really want to do is break this cycle. It's not just one bad apple. The whole barrel is absolutely rotten to the core. So what we've done is we've seeked to really demonstrate that. So we've been bringing together all of the historical exposés that's been done collectively, and we're bringing them together. We also have trained up, our actions team have done a fantastic job of training up, is it 40 or 50?
45.
About 45 volunteer investigators who are doing this in their own time, who's going out on a regular basis, often like, you know, every few nights, going out to farms, giving up their time, going through all these traumatic things to really account for what's happening. And we aim to release exposés of approximately, we're aiming for 30 farms that'll be released this year. And in doing that, we're going to document just how widespread and systemic and failing this scheme is and how it absolutely needs to go. And then we're going to be calling on, and we're going to be, you know, extending the narrative to this scheme needs to go. And we're going to be putting that right front and center of our comms. So there's one demand, RSPCA drop this scheme. We're aiming for the wide-ranging extent of these exposés to create a national drama. We want this to be the top news story in the country. It's very good timing for this. It's RSPCA's 200-year anniversary. They themselves have just rebranded to bring farm animals more in their identity, so they're already moving in our direction. They're already coming with us. What we're saying to them is we're not saying you guys are bastards. We're saying this is wrong, and then keep coming with us. Like this isn't just like an absolute attack. We're really doing this within the non-violent spirit. But it's their 200-year anniversary, so it's perfect timing. There's a lot of media coming around the RSPCA as it is anyway. It's going to be, I think, the biggest expose in British history, but I don't know that. I'm sorry if it's not. We're going to be doing open rescues to heighten the drama. People are going into farms, taking animals out. They're going to be going and getting veterinary care, and people are going to see them then living their lives, as they recover in sanctuary. We plan on getting more and more people involved by doing mass open rescues as well, going into farms and getting as many animals out as we possibly can in a way to really galvanize and inspire people and to build our movement. We'll be doing press grabbing actions to really keep this in the public conversation. And our messaging will be bold and uncompromising and truth-telling. And that's going to add to the drama. And the RSPCA is a unique thing. Most of the general public identify with the RSPCA. And something Ben from Animal Rising always says is that the weather is in the news every day because it affects everyone. And so a good campaign needs to be something that affects everyone. And the RSPCA does, because people identify it, they care about it. So it's going to be something that hopefully is going to be, people are going to be wanting to engage with, and the press are going to want to see that, and the press are going to be wanting to report on it. So we believe that we can win this. We believe that we can get this scheme dropped. We believe it's going to be a collective effort for not just Animal Rising, but for all of the other organizations that are working on this as well. And we think we can do it because, one, reputational damage. RSPCA get most of its money through donations. And they're going to need to restore public trust in order to keep that money flowing, in order to keep their organization doing some of the excellent work that we know that they do around dogs and cats and the like, and hopefully for farm animals in future. There is already internal discontent within the RSPCA. There's a lot of people who are very unhappy with the scheme working within the RSPCA, including at very senior levels. So it's a conversation that's ready to be pushed and ready for those decisions to be made. There's broad opposition to this scheme here within the broader animal movements. So there's opportunities for us either publicly, or if we're more inside game and we have to maintain good relationships with the RSPCA because we're lobbying with them or whatever it is, for the inside game or for those conversations to be happening and for us to communicate our discontent with the scheme and the fact that it needs to go. And I think it's only worth about $5 million in revenue for them, which sounds like a lot, but RSPCA have over £100 million budget every year. Which, if we remember again Matthew's talk, we had $120 million in this movement as a whole. So basically the RSPCA has the same budget as all of us do, if not more. So also, again, if we can bring them over onto our side, like that will double this movement's budget. It would be amazing, wouldn't it? That'd be great. So then, how might the RSPCA respond? Well, I see they've got two options. One, they defend the scheme, and then you have a public debate. And then you're having a debate around, is welfare good for animals? Is these schemes, is these conditions, is what is put in this marketing actually true or not? And then the public can witness that conversation, and that will reframe the conversation, and it will shift public opinion over time. Or they drop the scheme, in which case you've no longer got the oldest and largest charity endorsing and legitimizing this industry. And I want to make this clear, I do believe that they are part of the industry at this point in time. The RSPCA are part of the industry. The scheme itself is run by people who have ties to McDonald's, who have ties to Pilgrim's Farms, who have ties to Prince's Fish, which Prince's Fish aren't RSPCA assured either. So this is, the people leading this project within the RSPCA are from industry. They are part of the industry at this stage. And the RSPCA, in order to maintain its integrity, needs to separate itself from the industry in order to do what's really right by these animals. So this will be This isn't coming right now, it's not coming tomorrow, it will be coming at some point. We'd like for others to join us, just as we're joining organizations that's been putting a lot of pressure on the RSPCA, like Animal Equality, Animal Justice Party, Jerry Carbstrong. We'd like other organizations to come join us in this and to come and join in the call for the RSPCA to drop the scheme. If you've got exposés coming up, release exposés. If you've got capacity to go and do investigations, go do investigations, release those exposés. If you're playing the inside game, have the conversations with the people that you know and ask them to change this. If you've got things that your organization does, unique things that you bring to this movement, please bring them, and let's make this a collective effort. We've already had conversations with We the Free, and this is like a really nice example of ways in which they're going to be contributing to this. And they have their great 3-minute challenge that they do. They'll be doing this 3-minute challenge where we'll be talking to volunteer organizers to try and bring them on and to be doing this around the RSPCA Assured scheme at the time that we've got RSPCA under the spotlight. So coupling the on-the-ground conversations with what's happening. And I'm sure within your organizations there's things like, I'm looking at oh crap, what was it again? Peter, thank you. So, like Peter often do these corporate campaigns, don't they? Or like when we did the Grand National, they went after sponsors. So is there things that like maybe Peter could go after the supermarkets and pressure them to talk to the RSPCA or to get them to drop RSPCA Assured scheme? Like there are things that each of us in our movement might like to do. And so it's just an invitation to say, we're hoping to create a big storm around this, and please jump in. If you're like an activist on the ground in the grassroots, like we invite you to join us in doing things like stickering and postering. We're going to be releasing loads of stuff, so it's just like RSPCA Assured products, just like cover them in every supermarket all over the place, posters in every city, really bring this message into the public. So it's not just in the media stratosphere, it's also on the ground in public. Join us in our mass actions, in our open rescues, and do your own thing. Like, figure out what it is that you can do in your own communities to be building the pressure against this thing to make this change. So, to summarize, we really want to stop this scheme because it is absolutely atrocious and it's a stain on the reputation and the integrity of the RSPCA. But the goal is for them to become an ally. I just want to stress this again. We need the oldest and largest, most respected animal organizations to be there with us, fighting for animals, to be pushing the vision of animal freedom. This will be a step in that direction. It's not like they're going to come all the way in one, but we need to start bringing them along. So whilst we're going to be challenging them, we're going to be doing that very boldly, very forthrightly. We're going to be doing a lot of truth-telling. We're also going to be working from all the way through at this reconciliation angle. We're going to be celebrating the amazing things they've done in history. We're going to celebrate them for really bringing the cause of animals to the public attention over the last 200 years to help people understand, animals' lived experience, their amazing, complex social lives and everything. RSPCA has been part of that. It's been part of bringing that, and we need to celebrate that and respect that. So we really don't want to get into this big us versus them thing. So reconciliation will be built in, dialogue with the RSPCA will be built in, but that will not stop us from saying what needs to be said in the public and doing what needs to be done in defense of these animals. I don't have anything good to finish on. Lou's just done this, so I'm going to stop there. Please join us.